Hello, my name is Alex Lynn. I am from Troop 2904, and I am presenting a prop construction Thespy for the Odyssey, adapted by Mary Zimmerman. This play is about the hero Odysseus making his way home to his wife Penelope, who is beset by suitors, and she issues a challenge to these suitors to shoot an arrow through 12 iron axe heads. I firstly started my process by reading the script, then going in and highlighting, making annotations in the margins and doodles to get a general shape. After that, I started my research by looking at modern interpretations of how to shoot an arrow through 12 axe heads. Our director, Mr. Jeff Bangford, chose to adapt portions of the Odyssey to be in different decades, with Ithaca, Odysseus' kingdom, as the 50s. So, I went and did my research by watching different videos by archery experts, and as well as cinematic versions, to an episode on Mythbusters, as well as animated versions of those telling the tale of the Odyssey. I eventually compiled different screenshots of those axes, as well as a photo of an axe I made for the Murder Mystery Fall Play deadline from Westmont's 2024 to 2025 season for my director, and had a meeting with him on how he wanted the actors to interact with the axes. Ultimately, in this meeting, we decided on a more classical axe silhouette with a large enough radius for the audience to be able to see it, as this play was done in the round. I went through a couple of different options color-wise for the main portion of the axe, such as a fireman red to silver and black, but I ultimately chose black as the main color to represent the darkness within the scene of violence because they would hide bloodstains with the death that these weapons would create. In addition to the themes that the black represented, it also matched nicely with the ensemble's costumes of black for mourning because they were wearing all black with the 50s shape. In addition to that main color of black, I decided that a metallic accent color would give the illusion of a shining blade, and I was debating between gold and silver, ultimately picking silver for the aesthetic of matching the vintage Hollywood-inspired costumes. With that choice of silver, I had to decide between foil tape and spray paint, and I picked spray paint because it would reflect less and it wouldn't disrupt the lighting nearly as much as foil tape would. Previously, Westmont did this show in 2008, and the axes were more circular targets than actual axes. As we were talking, Mr. Bangford was very adamant on making sure the actors were able to fight with them, as he wanted the fight choreographer, Bessie, to create a large fight sequence, utilizing the axes against the suitors' swords. So firstly, I created a couple of physical sketches, and then I turned that into a digital sketch on a CAD program called Inventor. And then I took it to a program called VCarve, which took that digital sketch and it turned it into a file with cutting commands. And then I brought it onto a thumb drive and then brought it over to the Laguna CNC, which is basically a computer-controlled cutter that equally cuts out the proportions of the axes according to the digital design, instead of cutting it out with a jigsaw, which would be very uneven and they wouldn't all be identical. This was my first prototype, which is much smaller than it ended up being, created with scrap 1/4-inch plywood, much thinner than the 3/4-inch plywood I had originally planned on cutting it out of. I ended up adding about 1.5 inches more to the end of the sketch, creating a much more pleasing shape. Afterwards, I looked for a 1/4-inch to 3/8 inch scrap plywood because the theater had so much of it from previous projects from the set department. After all these axe heads were cut out, I sanded and painted them with black latex paint, with 3 coats to have some layer of rubber insulation because they would be taking a lot of wear and tear. I then added 44-inch long pieces of 1-inch PVC, and I gathered these from our storage, and I cut slots in them about 5 inches with a jigsaw to install the heads. After I installed the axe heads with the 1 1/4-inch screws, I painted over handles and added black tape to the bottom and top to cover the ends from the PVC. Then I gave a quick coating of silver spray paint to lock in these details, and matte sealant to really just lock in and make sure that the details wouldn't fade. What I loved about this prop is that it utilized items already in the theater, from scrap plywood to old pieces of PVC and latex paint. The only thing that was really bought for this project was silver spray paint and clear matte sealant. A couple of challenges for this were the new tools and techniques used. I had never really used the CAD to create something meant for the CNC machine, and although I've never really had experience with a jigsaw, I've had experience with a jigsaw, I've really never used it on PVC, which was a challenge within itself because it was round and would move a lot when I was trying to cut it. If I was to change one thing about this design, it would be changing out the PVC for wooden dowels to make sure that the axis had more stability. This would be really important because that way I wouldn't have to put nearly as many screws in to make sure that they were all stable. I am very proud of the fact that they all look very identical to each other and that they could be used in a fight sequence without needing much repair. This is my prop construction Thespy, and thank you for listening.